So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our first virtual Municipal Council of 2020. I hope all of you are well. I'm Megan Huncher. I'm the President and CEO of the Morris County Chamber of Commerce and the Morris County Economic Development Corporation, which is a division of the Chamber. On behalf of myself, our staff, our board of directors, we're glad that you could join us today for this important discussion. We are continuing to fulfill our mission, of course, now virtually during COVID. We continue to connect businesses, nonprofits, government entities to each other and to the resources that you need to succeed. If you have any ideas, please feel free to email me at megan@morrischamber.org, especially for future municipal forums. So at the Chamber, we are 100 years young. We continue to be stewards of our cause to support businesses and the economy that makes Morris County a top 10 Forbes county in the country. So thanks to all of you, we continue with this stature. It's quite extraordinary. And we know that this is a very challenging time, so we're trying to bring important programming to you as well. I'd like to thank our sponsor today, Spatial Data Logic. I met Jack Flood when I was the Director of Planning in Montville a number of years ago, and we decided to bring him on board and his team. And that was I guess about 6 years ago now, Jack, so yes. 6 or 7 years. And I know since then many communities within the county have adopted their software, so I look forward to hearing from him and from the communities today to see how they're using it and other technology as well to connect with constituents and developers, residents. I also encouraged SDL to get involved with the New Jersey Association of Planning and Zoning Administrators. And when I was president of the association, if you're not familiar with the association, it is a membership organization that does provide additional programming for planning and zoning administrators. So it's a nonprofit. If you're interested in learning more, they do have a website. So thank you, Jack, for also supporting their efforts as well. So today is an important topic of how you can use technology online and to connect and serve with your constituents. And I'd like to thank our Chamber staff for all of their hard work in getting this programming up and running. Kay Hilling, who is the wizard behind the curtain. I think she has hidden herself, but she is our extraordinary MC. And she is behind the controls. Colette Moran, who's our Director of Marketing, who you may have seen all of the emails from, and Mike Stanzilis, who's a panelist today, who also, in addition to being the Vice President of Membership and Business Development at the Chamber, is also a mayor of Mount Arlington in Morris County. So we're fortunate that he can also speak today wearing his other hat. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the program over to Jack Flood to talk a little bit about SDL, and then I'll introduce our panelists. Jack?
Excellent. Thank you, Megan. I have a brief presentation that I can go through, but first of all, thank you. This is our, I think, 3rd or 4th year supporting the Morris County Chamber of Commerce. It's been a great relationship. I can tell you with all 21 counties that we deal with in the state of New Jersey and the various different groups, this is one of the best and most interesting, and I applaud you for all the work that you do, both for yourself, Megan, but also everybody else on this group, because we see this as another networking and connecting side of things that is vital in local government that we serve. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and hopefully we can go through a quick little presentation of SDL. So through this pandemic and all along, we've been providing technology to help municipalities better organize themselves, better manage themselves, and streamline the process associated with what they do in their day-to-day. And then more importantly, when we shut down back in March, we kind of jumped into a mode of trying to work on getting as much automation and as much online for local government as we could. So what I'm going to do is share just a couple slides with you today about some tips on getting your municipality online. As we know, lots of towns struggle at times with technology, struggle at times with automation, struggle trying to get things online, and we're here to help. and we're here to help in areas that probably you never had to worry about before. Some of the numbers that we looked at during the pandemic were showing 20, 30, 50% decreases in revenue in things like permitting and other types of areas that a number of towns, just because they had to shut down their offices, were struggling with, and huge budget gaps and other issues that came about from it. SDL, we've been, literally cobbling together and working with all of our customers, 190 of them so far, to help them find ways that they can get online, to help them find ways to further automate, and in some cases, turn everything online, as a number of governments around the country are starting to do. So I wanted to share some 7 tips that municipalities may want to look into as far as getting online and stay efficient, and then stay safe. So one is remote access. Getting the ability to run whatever your systems are within your local government, and your ability for your staff to work from home or remotely is becoming a critical part that was a nice feature and maybe was a convenience in the past. And we're seeing this very much so in the future of government, a necessity. Budgets are tight, and getting technology to expand out of the local town hall is a challenge. Modernizing and getting VPNs and equipment in place has been a struggle for a lot of towns. And one in particular town that I want to bring to attention in this case is Florham Park, who during the early part of the pandemic actually had to shut down their building early on. The administrator and several other employees were contracted COVID. They had to shut down their building department because of it. Several of those people were in hospitals and almost on ventilators. And it took the better part of 2 or 3 of the employees almost a month and a half, 2 months before they were actually to a point where they could be back to a normal working operation. Part of what happened there in that case in that town was we actually allowed and worked fairly quickly getting them remote. They had to. There were so many projects going on. There's so much that they had, but so many of them were put in seclusion automatically because they were possibly affected, or the ones that were actually sick that were critical to those processes. And recently, coming out of that, they've actually implemented a lot of technologies as far as providing laptops to the building department now so they can work from home, adding our remote access side of things, and then automating a lot of the processes that we do online that they traditionally hadn't necessarily looked into. So that kind of leads to my next part of online services. Now more and more, we saw on our SDL portal product, in some cases 50, 100, 200, 300% increase of usage across all of our towns that had them activated. And everybody was trying to find answers as to when I can get a permit, when I can schedule an inspection, where are things at? So many of our towns started leveraging that technology and really moving it forward in trying to automate, communicate, and in some cases, run the whole process online. Other areas that we found became critical specifically during this, but more recently over the last 5 years, is our mobile apps. The ability to do the field level operations out in the field where inspectors and various folks could actually be out entering the information, entering the inspections, issuing the violations electronically out in the field on iPads and other devices. And automating them saves the time of going back and forth, even the savings in gasoline and the ability to go right out to a job site as opposed to going into town hall, picking up their paperwork, going out and then coming back. Things like remote inspections is a new technology that we rolled out during the pandemic. We were integrating a Zoom-like feel right now into our application. And we had a number of our towns that were struggling with getting Zoom technologies to be able to actually do an inspection. So we built an app that actually does it without having to install anything on devices. And hundreds of inspections were done this way, both in a live version, which we call supervised inspections, but then also the ability for, again, contractors and homeowners to take pictures of things and communicate back to the inspector without having them to go on site and actually see it. And with a lot of the relaxed regulations from the state, this actually opened up and kept that means of communication, keeping the inspections going, keeping the revenue going too. Digital plan review is another part that a lot of folks struggle with. It's a big part of the land use process. It's a big part of keeping the economy going in a lot of the towns and building and ongoing application processes. We rolled out our digital plan review last year, and we're actually rolling it into beta earlier this year. And it became crushing all of a sudden that all plan review essentially stopped in a lot of cases for the better part of 2 or 3 months in a lot of our towns. And being able to turn this to a full digital process, which we now support and include in our applications now, is becoming critical going forward and catching up also, but also the efficiencies that you need and moving it to a paperless environment. Online payments is another part that a lot of towns not necessarily have embraced, and we have a full integration with our partner Municipay that does the entire payment process online, from paying for a permit to renewing your pet license to your business licensing and everything else. And this one in particular became critical on the cash flow situation that a lot of our towns ran into. Because they didn't have somebody at the counter, or the town hall was closed and they had a drop box, but there's no way for them to even follow through. Oftentimes, a lot of towns didn't even have a voicemail system that they could connect in from home, and they were filling up and nobody could answer the questions, so therefore they don't pay. Turning these things online in a lot of these cases, even though there's fees and all the rest of that, really building that into your process is critical. Seventh tip, and the final one, we started doing websites about 2 or 3 years ago. That's exploding for us right now. Building websites that integrate your entire process online, answer the questions, and more importantly, are kept up to date. The constant flow of things that occur, the constant change that's going on in COVID, having a webmaster internally, but also having a website that you can have various different department members maintain, update, and be able to get the critical information out to them is honestly a big part of where we see the future going, but actually it's a big part right now. And I know a lot of towns have done an excellent job in communicating, but a lot of towns struggle with it too. We actually rolled out a free version of a COVID landing site that we had several towns take advantage of. That became just a one spot that maybe they couldn't make their current website work. It became a nice area for them to communicate on COVID going forward. That is diminishing to a degree at this point, but it might come back again. So I invite you to consider what you're doing on your website, or maybe look at some of those services that we might be able to provide for you. So that's my dog and pony show as far as SDL. Our contact information is here. For many of the 24, 25 towns that we do in Morris County, we're happy to have you. Maybe you're not using all these things. We'd love to talk to you. And certainly any other ones that aren't using us, please reach out. We have a lot of ways of contracting, working with budget constraints and everything else to get you up and running and hopefully more efficient. So Megan, thank you very much for the ability to present here today. I hand it back off to you.
Great. Thank you, Jack. Thank you for those important tips. So now I'd like to hand off the presentation to Mayor Mike Scanzilis and Carolyn Rinaldi, who is the administrator in Mount Arlington. Michael and Carolyn will be discussing innovative approaches to serving your constituency using technology.
Well, thank you, Megan, and thank you, Jack, for the excellent presentation. Good morning, everyone. So, you know, I came out of the business world, corporate America, for a long career, and going into part-time government while I was doing that. And there was, you know, you see government, we didn't always have that sort of, you know, using technology, the end user experience, right? In business, the end user experience is so important. The difference between government and business, we had to make a profit. And how do we make a profit? Making sure that the end user was happy. In government, the end user, that experience is not up to the same level as the business world. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to use companies like SDL or whoever you decide to use to bring technology to enhance the end user experience, i.e. your constituents and your residents, right? So we're not necessarily compelled to do that or to stay on the cutting edge. So I would recommend that you do have either a technology committee, which we formed a long time ago, to help us come into the 21st century. I want to thank Carolyn Rinaldi, our administrator, and in a minute she's going to take a look at our website. But you know, when you think about getting caught in the past, you think about fax machines, and I'll talk in a minute about Trenton and the primordial sort of dinosaur soup that they're stuck in there. But there's something called Moore's Law. If you haven't heard of it, it's pretty cool to look up, but basically means that the speed of which data can be processed is almost doubling almost every 2 years. So if you hit your website and get things rolling the way you like, and you don't continually revisit that, you will get caught in the past as well. And so, like, take fax machines, for example. A lot of municipalities are still using faxes, and the Trenton is still using faxes. So to me, these are so many areas where you can really get ahead. So in Mount Arlington, we use our website. That's kind of the center of our technological hub for our end user experience. We are currently developing a mobile app also, so you can access everything you need from the end user experience. We have emergency notifications. You can get pretty much any form you want. There's government meetings, minutes, schedules. Carolyn will go into a lot of detail on that in a minute. But communication, as Jack alluded to earlier, is critical. So obviously most people are using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, which we are. And the communication is a lot of different levels and layers, right? So people now, and one thing I've been learning since I've been working here at the Chamber for the last year is that the spoken word is taking over the written word. So people love to watch information. They like to see a video. If it's catchy and it's quick, that's what I recommend you do. So for me, I've been doing lots of informational videos for my constituents, short 2, 3, 4 minutes. They're getting thousands of views. The residents are very happy with that method of communication as opposed to nonstop written. We still do written. There are still people that, come and pay their taxes in person and they won't ever look at the internet. So you still have to have a diverse sort of portfolio of communications methodologies and processes. So, at Mount Arlington, that's kind of what we're doing. So before I turn it over to Carolyn to do a quick tour of our website, I talked a little bit about dinosaurs caught in the past. And in my opinion, Trenton is completely caught in the past, having dealt with them from a business standpoint for a number of years on state bids, filling out forms that are called mimeographs. If you're much younger than me, you may have to look up what that term means, but basically, these are non-electronic forms you have to fill out by hand and then scan or fax back to the state, and pages that thick, again, fax machines. And I've been talking with Assemblyman Brian Bergen about this for quite some time, but really what made me go crazy was the Department of Labor getting caught with their technological pants down with the onslaught of unemployment claims. And as it turns out, they're using a DOS-based system. They had to go and look for COBOL programmers, people who can write in an ancient language called COBOL. It's almost like Sanskrit, really, if you think of where we are in technology today, still using something as old as COBOL. It's an embarrassment. So I've asked Brian to put together something, I'm calling it the Technology Modernization Act. Hopefully in the next couple of years, you'll see that come through the legislation that would require Trenton every year, when all the different departments come for their budgets, to present what technologies they're using and what they're doing to modernize. Phase 2 of that is then to hire outside consultants to come in and make recommendations on how Trenton can be modernized from a technological standpoint. That will help, again, the end user experience, the constituents Jack talked about, and it will also help us save money with the voluminous amount of the army of bureaucrats in Trenton. There's so much technology that we can use. We need to take a lesson from the private sector in that. So that's me and my soapbox. I appreciate everybody being here today. I'm going to let Carolyn do a quick tour of our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so just bear with me a second while I share our screen here. Okay. We're up?
Yeah. Okay,
great. So, so just kind of summarizing some of the things that Mike said, and Jack as well. Jack was talking about this, the seven different areas, the criterias that municipalities should be looking at, and I can't, sitting in this seat, I can't agree enough. We were all faced with a lot of things to prepare for. Mount Arlington we were in a good place for a number of reasons. I'm contending with a smaller staff, but I'm in a unique situation of the building, the way the building is outfitted. So we were afforded the opportunity to still maintain a presence in the building during all of this. But as the mayor pointed out, you have to have a lot of considerations for how do you continue that to provide all of those levels of services that people have grown to expect along the way. So some of the things that we did beforehand, out of concern for the fact that maybe we wouldn't be in the office, we made sure that everyone had remote access to all of our systems. We had the ability to have voicemails forwarded to everyone. So we never lost communication with any of our residents. And again, we were in the building, but we were kind of in, as everybody knows, in those first few weeks, we weren't really sure where we were going to land. So we wanted to be prepared for that. So technology is vital to the continuity of service for your residents. Can't stress it enough for anybody that hasn't looked to make some changes along the way. Some of the things that we did were all of our meetings, obviously, like everybody else, went to Zoom. But our website was kept current as well. I kept in constant communication with our IT support. I also have a staff member that handles all of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We also started a YouTube channel. So it's a great way to, like the mayor was saying, when he puts out these videos, it's a great opportunity to share that information with everyone. Some people are more comfortable getting an email. Some people prefer to be on Facebook. Some people just want to look at Twitter and see what the latest information is. So we were trying to reach all aspects, what people would be looking for. And just to kind of give you a general overview of our website, obviously one of the first things on the homepage, we created a link for COVID-19 information. There's a drop down here, which again, a lot of local information. I'm not going to go through, you're welcome to look at our site, but any current news, links to other important sites that would offer more information to people. Our government, all of our mayor and council, all of their communication information is available through the website. You can email them and hit their voicemail through there as well. Our departments, all the links are there. Forms, the drop down for the forms is really by department. So anything that anybody needed, and again, this was in place before, it was just something we needed to reinforce and just give people that assurance that we're here. Nothing changed as far as how you get in touch with the municipality. So it's really what we've learned through all of this is where we can make improvements, where there's additional information that should be made readily available. But for the most part, a lot of this was already in place. So to create that, again, the continuity of business. So all of the forms are here for the various departments if anybody needs to get in touch with them. And then the links again, anybody wanting to get in touch with anybody in the borough, any kind of maps that they want to look at. We do an annual calendar that goes out, but having it on the website, we can update it accordingly. Links to other government agencies, community-based organizations, any affordable housing information. The point is, we want people to be able to come to the website and have it be readily accessible and easily accessible, any information that they may want to find about living in Mount Arlington. Back to the home page, which is usually, where everybody is. We have an online payment system. We put that in place probably close to 10 years ago now for our tax and utilities. And again, that was one of those things where we just had to reinforce and remind people that that is available to them. So the online payment system was already in place. Several years ago, we also did one for recreation as well. Again, that's, that got a huge response as well once we went online, like the mayor was saying, paperwork, all the paperwork to sign your kids up for soccer or softball or whatever the case may be. It's great to have everything available right there on the website. So that is, like I said, just in general, an overview of our site. You're more than welcome to take a look. You can see we always have our mayor's message right on the front page there. And I will stop sharing my screen. And thank you.
Great. Thank you. Mayor Stanzilis, would you like to say anything before we move on?
Just want to thank the Chamber. Learned a lot in the year that I've been here. The Chamber's been using Zoom before I even heard of the word Zoom. So I learned all how to be an expert in it when I started working here, brought it to our municipality. We were, thanks to that, we were way ahead of the Zoom sort of breakdown when everybody had to pivot. And there's other technologies aside from Zoom, but clearly that was a real benefit. And this is business continuity and customer service wrapped into one. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I appreciate it.
So, Carolyn, quick question. What is your platform for your website? Is it proprietary, or are you using WordPress, like an open source?
Proprietary.
It is. Okay, so you had a company come in and build it.
Yes.
Right, because there are concerns about security, I'm sure, as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, great.
And
Thank
it's
you.
good to that question. It's good to get people outside the government bubble. We all live in these bubbles, and you need to look outside and bring in companies like SDL who have a broader view.
So, Mayor Stanzilis, would you like to introduce Mayor Morris?
I don't know if I'd like to, but I feel compelled I have to. So, so one of my neighboring towns, of course, is the great town of Mine Hill, and I'm happy to call Mayor Sam Morris a friend. And Sam, I understand that you're hitting it out of the park with SDL, and you're kind of a subject matter expert. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Hey guys, thank you for having. Thank you to the Chamber. Thanks, Mike, for that nice introduction. I think if there's a, to kind of dovetail into what Mike was saying about kind of a customer service oriented municipal government. I'm midway through my 9th year as mayor, and I try as best I can with my staff and with the residents to have kind of a Neiman Marcus kind of an approach to, we work for them, they don't work for us, and whatever we can do within any form of reason to be helpful and navigate government for our residents is our goal, right? It's not always smooth because sometimes they just don't want to hear what they have to hear, but for the most part, we do try very hard to we all talk especially, and I'm sure Mike can attest to this, when we talk differently before and after we get elected. We learn new terminology, we learn new words and things, and we start using them, and then we start losing the public. So we have to kind of always get back to our roots a little bit on when I was on the other side of the council dais or on the other side of the, is one of those things that we've tried to do here in Mine Hill is, I come from I had an insurance background, and then for quite a while I worked in electronic medical records, working with physicians and working in IT technology. So when I started looking at options to put this together where we can say, okay, we can give better service to the residents. We looked at different platforms, and we actually chose SDL for all of our construction services. And I'll segue that into, I'm joined this morning by, that's Jen Blouse, who's our construction department manager. She loves the camera, you can tell with the little hand wave. And what we did was we incorporated the construction, the applications and permits and all that. And we are slowly adding modules. Like this year, I think we're going to add the dog licensing and a couple other things we're going to sit down with Jack about. But what we try to do here is, and you guys, Mount Arlington has a beautiful website. We're actually in the process of updating ours and building an app, is trying to make things more accessible. And I think Mike can speak to this, but I know from an IT background, it makes everything, there's a certain level of friction that happens when you don't have smooth technology, and when residents who are technology-based people, like Mike was talking about, some people look on Twitter or they want to go online. A lot of people pay all of their bills automatically every month and don't even see them, And then there's the other people who are, older, who want to come in, they still want to pay in cash, right? And you have everything in between. But it creates a calm and a smoothness the more technology you can implement. So we've done that. We have a couple of systems we use. We have a proprietary website. We have a system called SwiftReach that we use for communicating with residents. I think Mike and I are probably similar in our communication level. Every resident in Mine Hill has my Facebook, my cell phone number, my email. Unfortunately, they know where I live, and if you use that, which my wife doesn't like a whole lot, but we're just being very accessible. People have come to understand they're going to get an answer. It's going to be a good one or a bad one, but they respect that they get an answer. But bringing in all the technology, I think, leads to a better customer service point of view. One of the things I'm going to try to share this screen that we put in now for all the government folks that are on there, and I know Mike, you guys do this. One of the things we did was through the SDL is we created a portal with Jack, where the biggest thing you hate to see in a town is an OPA request, right? Because one, I don't think they're used properly. An OPA request should only be used, in my opinion, if a town either drags their feet or says, no, we won't give you a document, right? Then you're at fault. You're not doing the right thing. But OPA requests have turned into, in a lot of cases, just a lazy way to get documents. You know, you could send an email and say, hey, can I see all the documents on ABC property? And that's works if you're a town that's cooperative. But most attorneys and realtors and people like that have turned it to, I'm gonna overpaper you, and then you could get sent to the Records Council and get a fine if you don't give them stuff in the timely manner. So one of the things that we did here was we created a portal that, well, let me back up. About 3 years ago, Jen, I think it was 3 years ago.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I hired someone who still works here to digitize all of our construction records, okay? So, and when I say digitize, there are companies out there that will just, they'll take all the staples out of a construction folder and scan it. What we did was, and using Jack's technology, we scanned stuff to all the different, we'll call the tabs or the different sections of a property folder. And what we're doing is we're trying to put everything in one place that you can see. So if you're looking to buy a house, you can email in, we'll give you a link, which I'm about to show you, and you can investigate that house and get a full history as best as the town has it. We've just moved probably, I'm gonna guess 20 boxes, 30 boxes of old paper records we're about to put into storage because they've all been scanned in. But what it's also done, when I talk about the friction that happens, it makes life here in the office easier because people use this portal. They don't have to take up 45, 50 an hour of time of the staff here, right? So it frees them up for their tasks. So let me try to see if I can share this screen with you. Let's see here. Did that come up? Hey guys, you there?
Mayor, you froze.
Oh, hang on one second. I didn't do something right here. Hang on. Let me see here.
It's not a technology presentation without a technology glitch, so.
Without somebody messing it up. I got to do my share the screen. So share, oh, okay, here we go. Your screen, here we go. Okay. Okay, let me see here.
There we go.
All right, so let me see if I can get this guy.
You muted yourself, just so you know.
Is that better?
There we go. We can hear you.
All right, let's see if this is going to work now. Okay, so this is the portal. We want to search a property. So I'm going to use my house. Okay. So now what I've done is I've brought my house up, right? So permit, I can show, like if someone wants to research a property, they can go into this and see all the permits that have been issued, everything that's going on, inspections. Now, where this is really helpful to a town and also to the public is having this information online. makes it super accessible, right? So there's no, there's really no barrier between the two, okay? So, and the reason that I like that is, one, the residents, you have to create a little login, but you can go ahead and go through, but the residents get to the point that they say, okay, there's nothing in my way. I don't feel like there's kind of that heavy government blocking, or I have to go through. It's right there and it's accessible. Now for our staff, what this does is, if Jen can send them the link, they can sign in and they can see any property because they're all public records, right? But it also frees up a ton of time. And on any real estate transactions, we all know, if you work in a town, you could get up to 6 OPA requests on one property. You got the buyer's attorney, seller's attorney, buyer, seller, and the agent for the buyer, the agent for the seller. And we've had that happen where you have 6, 7, 8 people sometimes. You know, you get the mom of a young home buyer call up and she wants documents, even though the lawyer's already working on it, right? So this creates a lot of efficiency. It creates a lot of transparency. And to us, this is kind of, in a way, this is like ultimate. I don't know if you can see the image, like there's the house in the system. It creates a lot of, it kind of calms things, because it lets people know there's nothing being hidden from you. There's nothing being held back. Again, when people are on the other side of the aisle or the other side of the fence, they don't quite trust us. They wonder if there's something going on. Some towns are still very stoic in their approach to technology. But that's kind of the approach that we take with it. And I hope that, let me try to get back to my. Okay. Now I think we're back to regular. I didn't know if Jen, you had anything you wanted to add a little bit to something?
Just that it definitely helps with the OPA requests, and the time that saves has been a huge help, especially, you know, like you said, the several.
Can't hear you, Jen.
I'm sorry. Several people, you know, with the same request, that takes, it just eats time away, and we don't have time to actually do the other things that we need to do on a daily basis. So that, I think the efficiency of that has helped the most. And I don't know if you saw when he was scrolling through there, but there was a section that said attachments. That's where all our scanned items are. So they can see, you know,
Any and everything.
any permits. If there was open permits, they'll see in the permit section that it hasn't been closed yet. It hasn't been issued a certificate. So there's a lot of information that out there that it limits their questions if they have any additional questions.
So, yeah, that part's great. And then, like I said, we're going to be integrating more of Jack's technology here, I think, in the next year or two. Definitely by the end of this year, some new other parts of his system. So, I just wanted to, I wanted to touch base on that, in kind of the transparency and the ease of use thing that we use it for, and our other systems, our Swift 911 and the websites, very similar to Mount Arlington, excuse me. So.
Great, thank you very much. Oh, excellent, thank you. Yep. That was wonderful. So what you were showing us, Mayor, was on your handheld device, correct?
Yeah. Yep, that's all right on my, right on the portal. Works smooth, very smoothly.
That's impressive.
I'm not smooth, but the portal's, Jack's technology smooth.
So Jack, of all the modules, I think you have how many now? How many modules?
We support over 20 departments. So we like to say we do everything but finance and Parks and Rec, but actually we're working on both of them too. So.
Okay. So is there an average number of modules that municipalities use, or is it?
We have some towns that have one. We have towns that use every part of it. Mayor Sam has been one of the more progressive ones of pushing that limit of what I can get out of it. And I applaud him and his staff for, they're the only town that I know of that successfully did their own scanning internally and put it online and got past a lot of the red tape that a lot of towns have, that they worry about what information should be online or not. He spent the time as attorneys. He fought the fight on that. And by putting all that online, I can see that the traffic that goes to his SDL portal site's enormous compared to other towns up there, just because he's making it as open and as transparent as he possibly can. And I truly believe, like Jen and the mayor said up there, the traffic coming in now is a lot lower and they can get back to doing regular work as opposed to the answering question work and everything else. And I'm not saying you close the counter and you don't have that interaction, but you know, when you're seeing 6 to 8, and I know in some of the more complicated projects that I deal with, like in Jersey City and all the rest of that, they'll have hundreds, you know, and you're processing each one and sending an email and all the rest of that without the automation, without, you know, even talking about getting more of this information online. It's just, you're just making more work, and in some cases more staff that can be doing a lot of other things that can be more efficient for the town. So.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. So last but not least, we have Chatham Borough in the eastern portion of the county. Jocelyn Matheson is the council president who's joining us today. So thank you, Jocelyn.
You're very welcome. And let me see if I can get my screen sharing working. Okay. And yeah, okay. So I did a PowerPoint partially because I use technology all the time, but I'm always very nervous about using it live, that something will go sideways. As Megan mentioned, I'm Chatham Borough president. I was elected to Chatham Borough Council in 2018 and then council president in 2019. But before that, I've worked in municipal government for over 20 years on the management side and the administrative side, and I've been a consultant for the last 5 years. I really never thought I would run for office, but there were situations in the town that made me want to do it. And frankly, being a resident of the town and trying to deal with the technology and the processes and things here were making me tear my hair out. So I thought, why not get involved and see if I can bring some change. I'm also not going to share the Chatham Borough website because, as Jack knows, it's probably one of the worst in the state right now. And that's one of the big projects that we're working on right now. So in terms of my work, I do a lot of work on streamlining government processes, especially permitting, improving transparency, and trying to simplify the experience of interacting with government. This sort of reiterates what Mike was saying earlier in terms of government service. But sometimes this is a hard sell for municipal employees, which is that if residents have a positive consumer experience, like it's straightforward, it's efficient, it's easy, it's not the DMV, they feel good about how their tax dollars are being spent. And they will get a sense that you're on the edge and you're doing things well instead of having to do 50 forms in triplicate for the state. They will be more positive to elected officials. There's more budgetary support. There's more likelihood that you'll get the resources that you need and you can continue to improve the service. And I can't tell you how often I've seen the reverse cycle where you don't have good customer service and so you actually get funded less and less and less and less support, and there's just this downward spiral. So in Chatham Borough, we also have a technology advisory committee, which I really recommend, especially if you don't have a lot of in-house capacity. So we had a number of priorities. One was agenda management. We were posting our agendas online, and then we were using, I can't remember, a third-party service to post the videos, and the process of pulling together the agendas was manual and very just very labor intensive and very bureaucratic, and then posting the agendas, and then the agendas and the agenda packets were and are being delivered to council members by the police every Friday in these huge paper packets. And I hate paper. So we really wanted to streamline that process and also put the agenda packets online, not just the agendas, so that people can see all of the attachments associated with each agenda item. So and we actually talked to Jack about this. This is a product that they will have in the future. We did a sort of an RFI process, an informal RFI process, and are in the process of implementing agenda management. One thing I'll say that's great about agenda management is that if you use the right service, they'll video and audio all of your meetings. And then 3 or 4 years later, anybody can Google, your mayor, an elected official, a resident, they can Google a topic, affordable housing, they can, or class 3 officers or whatever, and it will jump straight to not just the agendas and the minutes, but the actual video and audio of those discussions. So you can see, you can go back into history and see what happened. And that was really one of the reasons that we went with it. It actually catalogs the meetings as they happen by topic. So you can go back and watch those videos. Our next priority is getting licensing, all of our licensing online: pets, parking, trees, street openings, certificates of occupancy. We want all of that online. We want it paid for online. We want greater transparency. This is something that I've advocated for a long time, which is that, for example, for planning board applications, zoning board applications, historic applications, you have to go down to Borough Hall to ask to look at those. There's no reason why you can't just be posting those online so that people can see, hey, my neighbor wants to put on an addition and they need a variance for a backyard setback. You should be able to click on that link. You should not have to go down to Borough Hall and have someone unroll plans for you. And during COVID, that actually was an issue. Customer complaints is another really interesting area. SDL has a very good customer complaint module. We had been using another one called C-Click-Fix, which we're transitioning over from. But one of the reasons that you want to have a customer complaints online system is because residents will call 3 or 4 departments about the same thing. And those 3 or 4 departments are all tracking down the same issue at the same time because they don't know that they're all tracking it down. And we actually had this happen last year with a smushed squirrel in the library parking lot that people were so upset about because the kids were seeing it. They called the administrator's office, they called Public Works, they called the engineer, and they called the clerk's office, and then they called every elected official they could find, and everybody was trying to chase this squirrel down. If you have a customer complaints module and SDL can show you how it works, one person logs in the issue, and then everyone else can go and say, hey, this has already been taken care of, and it's been referred to Public Works or the fire department or whoever. And then the self-service research, property information online, I can't tell you how valuable that is. And I've done a lot of work in permitting and land use over the last 20 years. And the ability for people to go online and figure out what's going on with their property or their neighbor's property, and whether they've pulled permits, and for you to go online about your own property just saves a huge amount of time. I used another system that's sort of similar to SDL in Connecticut. And one of the best things was that the mayor would call me and say, there's somebody who wants to meet about this property this address downtown. And I could just pull up the information. I could figure out what the zoning was, who was currently using it, what permits they pulled, etc. Took 2 seconds. And if we'd had a slightly more tech savvy mayor, he wouldn't have even needed to call me. So it's an amazing communication tool. So the COVID-19 and forced innovation, I think this is important. I don't think anyone 6 months ago would have imagined us able to have all of these meetings online and substitute the interminable in-person meetings with online meetings. And it forced municipalities to move at a speed that municipalities aren't used to working at, but it shows that it's doable. So I was listening, and this is a couple months ago, to the New Yorker Radio Hour. They talked to a bunch of mayors about what COVID-19 has done, and they interviewed the mayor of Cheyenne, Wyoming, and she basically said, what municipalities need is technology. We don't need buildings. We don't need all of these infrastructure problems with our buildings. What we really need is technology, because we can do so much of this remotely. And so I think the interviewer, who was optimistic, said the virus is going to change municipal life, maybe permanently. That's only true if people keep pushing forward. No matter what, once this is over, we need to keep pushing forward with this. So this is the Trenton or the DMV example. I don't know if you've seen the Zootopia movie, but this is the impression of how technology works in local government and how local government works. And this is from an old presentation that I did, and that's intentional because these issues have been around for 20 years, where we have capabilities of being so much better than we are. So you look at Uber and what it's like to order an Uber, and the fact that my 82-year-old mother can order an Uber, and you just have to push the idea that there is no reason why government can't be doing the same thing. There really is no reason why government cannot be doing just as well. You know, I do a lot of work with builders who claim that they don't know anything about technology and they're uncomfortable with technology. At least, you know, 10 years ago when I started doing that, started working in that world, they did. But they do everything on their phone. They actually already were using technology. We've been reserving plane tickets until COVID and paying our bills and doing all our banking online. So the public is not as uncomfortable with this as people think that they will be. Yes, there's that little subset who still want to be able to talk to somebody, but we all know how to use technology, and the issue is that the interfaces need to be efficient, they need to be easy, they need to be intuitive, and there is no reason why they can't be, whether it's you know, scheduling a bulk waste pickup or scheduling a flight or paying your taxes or doing your billing. So these are all older slides. And again, this is to provide examples of the fact that this has been around forever. So Maps Online allow you to do your own research. So I don't even remember which system this is from, but you have your GIS map online, SDL links to it. Even if you don't have SDL, there's other ways to do it. Morris County has a GIS shop that I really, really hope that the county strengthens it, because we should all be able to use GIS much more robustly. And by us, I mean our residents as well as us. During the permit review process, again, I do a lot of work on permit processes. Sometimes you just submit something and it needs to be looked at by 5 or 6 or 7 different departments before it gets approved. And you're trying to call constantly, like, what's going on with my permit? What's the situation? So, and I've done work in major cities with 100% paper processes where they're shipping rolls of plans from department to department, and using one system to bring all of this information in one place for the reviewers and for the public makes a huge difference. Again, this is something SDL also has the capability of doing. Customer transactions. In 2001, 2002, was working for the city of Bellevue, Washington. And they developed something called mybuildingpermit.com, which allowed people to submit for permits online, the kinds of permits that require no plan review. So it's just you just submit the permit and then it's subject to inspection. And they did it regionally with a bunch of communities. So 2001, 2002, we're in 2020, they developed that. And these are statistics from 2016. 22,000 online permit applications for over-the-counter permits, 8,600 plus applications for permits requiring plan review, over 140,000 users, and almost 1 million sessions using the system. So if you think about the time that it takes to go to Borough Hall and wait in line and provide a corporate check or whatever for your electrical permit, and come back, and the fact that there are companies that hire people full-time to just drive from town hall to town hall to get these permits, you think about that time and you realize that it is worth investing money in these systems because you're saving them money. Some low-tech options. Here's another example. Again, this is permitting, but there's many other areas. That I worked for, there were a lot of complaints, like, we don't know when the inspector's coming. We have to just sit all day and wait for the inspector. So we used our website and we put up online what time the inspector was starting and what their addresses were. And people checked it every morning, and the phone calls into the building office in the morning just disappeared because they could do that. We also had the inspectors call when they were on their way to the next place, which they didn't like doing, but it saved people so much time. Electronic plan review, Jack's already covered this, but again, one of the big issues when you're doing plan review is you have 5 or 6 different people looking at plans. And if they're all looking at a different set of paper plans, and then they bring them back, and there's a conflict between, say, a handicap issue and a fire egress issue, it's the applicant who has to try and resolve that. If they're all working on one document at the same time, they can do that communication real time, and then the applicant doesn't get conflicts that they don't know how to resolve. Another example, if you're in a community that has something that has long lines involved, you can make lines virtual. And there's, again, this is very easy. The building department that I headed up, they were famous for their long lines. In fact, at Halloween, somebody put a skeleton in the hallway as a joke because people were used to waiting in these long, long lines. And while we were working on the online permitting stuff, I signed on to a system called QLess, which where you get in line on your phone. So you get in your line while you're having your coffee or before you leave home, and then it gives you an alert when you're at the front of the line. And it was super cheap, and it was cloud-based, so there was no installation, and it was incredibly easy to use, and the lines were gone the next day. It had a huge impact on perception because seeing people wait in line is a nightmare. Collaborative discussion without physical meetings. This is 4 years old, the slide that I used, but we all now know how you can do these discussions. And again, if you have, say, plan review where you need input from an engineer and from someone in historic and from the fire department and all of that, they can do this using Zoom. They don't all need to meet in person. In terms of closing thoughts, in terms of getting a municipality to use technology, I think it's really important to have audacious goals because they force change. So paperless by 2024. We're going to go paperless by 2024. We're going to have no forms. Just say it and then work a work plan towards that. What's the easiest, most important, and then go from there. Make the most of the technology you already own. So I actually met Jack because I was, before I was in elected office, I was hired to do an assessment of a municipality in New Jersey who shall remain nameless. And they had a lot of issues and a lot of customer service issues and a lot of staffing issues. And they actually already had SDL and they had all of the software that they needed and they were paying for it to streamline their permitting, their OPRA processes, et cetera. They just didn't know that they had it and they didn't know how to use it. And they were being super cheap. They had 5 seats and they didn't want to get any more seats. So they kept all of these paper processes going. So I called Jack as part of our report and said, sounds like this is actually doable with what you have. And they needed training. Training is a huge one. Never go cheap on training. And they needed a willingness to move things from the paper process. So again, explore using inexpensive, already available tools. Your website, it's already out there, and it can be a great tool like the inspections schedule. Using the cloud is huge. You can use Google Docs, you can use Dropbox, you can use a bunch of other things, but it's just out there and it's free and it's secure. Hiring and finding tech-savvy clerical staff and interns is so important. Chatham Borough has completely transformed since we got a new administrative assistant to our administrator who loves technology, and she's just super savvy and she's willing to take anything on. And if you have people who have always done it the paper way and they want to always do it the paper way and they're fighting you tooth and nail every step of the way, they either need to be coached into a new way of thinking or they need to be moved out of that position and doing something else, because you need to have people who are not going to say no. That said, real quick, I will tell you, I often have people who come in the room and just are saying, we can't do this, it's impossible, it's not legal, the state won't let us, etc. That's usually not accurate. And if you take all of their issues and you write them up on a whiteboard, or if you're having a remote conversation, you type them all up and you work through them, you can get buy-in from your staff. And I think that rather than imposing things on people, that tends to make a big difference. Taking advantage of the RFI process. So if you think you might be interested in agenda management or new permitting software or new licensing software or a new way to pay taxes or changing the, how you do parks registration, you can do a very brief 1 to 2 page request for information instead of a full RFP. And all of these software companies for free will give you these great tutorials on what's available and what's out there. It's a great tool. You just need to have the time to come together. When we did the agenda management, it was all remote, and we had the mayor and the administrator and myself and some residents online, and it was very helpful for us to see what we did want and what we didn't want. And then the last thing I would say is that when you think you can't afford this stuff, you can't afford not to do this stuff. You need to look at how much it costs you to do the paper processes, and not how much and take away not only how much time your employees spend on it, but also how much time the businesses and the residents spend on it. And that's how you can come up with a financial justification for spending the money, and not necessarily that much money to do things differently. And that's it. And
Wonderful. So thank you so much, Jocelyn. That was such incredible, important information. And we're really fortunate in our communities to have leaders like yourselves who have this type of background. It's really, really extraordinary. So please encourage those who are also in your communities with tech backgrounds and STEM to consider running for office and volunteering, because we really, really need them. And to your point, at the chamber, we've been very fortunate. Kaylee Hilling, who is hiding behind our chamber logo, was recently hired, and she's extraordinarily adept at technology. So we're very fortunate to have her as our executive assistant. So we're at time. I know for those of you who need to leave, we completely understand. There was one question. It is aimed at Mayor Sam, who unfortunately did have to leave us. So we'll pass that along to him. So thank you for joining us today. Jack, would you like to say any closing words?
As far as answering that question, what was the cost of converting the construction files to the new app? The cost was because they did the scanning themselves. Actually, it was $0, and then by them putting it right into SDL desktop, and then choosing to put it right online into the SDL portal, that's all automatic, so it's all included. So it was really very impressive. I give a lot of credit to Mayor Sam on that one in particular, of instituting that a couple of years ago, and the benefits are coming back huge. I have not had many other towns that are open to just scanning and putting everything online without redaction. But that is something that I think has been very successful for that town, and definitely something other towns should look at. And talk to the attorney up there to find out about it, because he came up with a very ingenious way of getting around some of the challenges with it.
Nice. So Wendy has a tall order, apparently asking for help at the DMV. So that's for another topic. We'll bring the governor back to discuss.
Technology Modernization Act, Wendy.
Absolutely. So thank you all for joining us. We're certainly glad to do more seminars around technology. So if you have any ideas, please pass it along to the chamber, the EDC, and we look forward to seeing you on Zoom in the very near future. So thank you again. Thank you for SDL for your sponsorship.
Well, thank you.
Thank you to Carolyn, Jocelyn, Mike, and Sam for joining us. Thank you all for your time
all around.
today.
Great presentations, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have a wonderful day.
Yep.
Thanks,
Bye.
you too.